up and get it, okay?
Not even without your brothers.
Can you be heard? Can you be heard for Zoom?
Can I be heard for Zoom, Jeff,
be,
if I
yeah.
talk at this level?
Yes.
Thanks very much for Jeff for setting this up for us today, too. What a great setup. We got a new to us projector and screen. Thanks for joining us. We're starting out with a scripture. This is a scripture that we used at our church retreat 2 retreats ago. But it still, I think, has a lot of relevance for our discussion today. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. I'm going to show you some PowerPoint charts. And the text is from a report by Mr. Torcha of Torcha Structural Engineering. We hired him. He came in August and did a thorough look around the building. And many of the pictures that we're going to show you today are pictures that he took, but these are the text are observations that he made about our building that we want to share with you. So first he said, what's something that you probably already know, the property is located in the center of the city of Geneva, located on a rise on the west side of West Main Street at the end of Seneca Street. The existing church complex is a 2.5-story structure with partially below-grade basement over crawl space. The picture he took, familiar to us all. The facility is an example of late 19th, early 20th century Romanesque revival style with a decorative crenulated stone facade on the east, along with a bell clock tower over the main entrance porch at the street. Beautiful day when we visited. Here's a picture I've never seen. I must have had a drone with them. The central hipped roof is topped with a large flat middle portion. The adjoining lower roofs of the brick extensions are also hipped with internal Yankee gutters built just above the eaves. Overview of our roof. It includes a high-ceilinged sanctuary with attached community, office, and Sunday school rooms. Here's a view of our sanctuary. There are other, certainly, places where we look up and we see the paint gone. The south-facing brick wall near the southwest corner is in very poor condition due to cracking and water damage on the face over the years. Previous remedial efforts have not been successful. I want to show you 3 pictures. So this is the corner that he's talking about. The brick chimney is in very poor condition. A company is coming later this month to inspect, assess, and provide an estimate for the chimney's demolition. And I should add that it costs $175 just to have the company come. Here's our chimney. I don't know if you have a chance to look up at our chimney very much. There's an old chimney. There's a new chimney on top of it. The dark place in the middle is where bricks have already fallen out. The whole thing is getting ready to topple over. It needs to be taken down. The floors of 2 rooms in the southwest corner are spongy and bouncy. To date, the piers and posts which were inserted have not provided sufficient support or reinforcement to combat the problem. I'm going to show you 2 pictures here. The floor has sunk. This is the room that so many of you helped move the community lunch program pantry out of because it couldn't support the weight of the pantry food anymore. and moved the pantry food over by the kitchen. A visit to the crawl spaces below these rooms also reveals rotting of the beams, floor joists, and support posts, at least partially due to exposed dirt floors of the crawl space. This is what it looks like under those rooms. Broken drain tiles have allowed storm water to enter the building, causing further damage. Interior and exterior walls are crumbling. Proper roof drainage and flashings will need to be designed and installed, as leakage from the existing inset Yankee gutters have caused decay of the exterior walls below. The roof is in poor condition. Kanga Roof worked on the front of the roof and replaced the Yankee gutters for the most necessary repairs. We hope this stops leaks into the sanctuary.
That's the kangaroo.
It's a company that does repairs.
Tim, why don't you come up here? We're going to show you. I'm going to show you some pictures that Kanga Roof took when it was up on the roof. These three pictures show damage to the main roof around the bell tower facing Main Street. So this is what the roof looked like.
Well, yeah, that's after everything's been stripped off. This particular picture here, this is right along the bell tower. Again, only had a piece of the wood there, but it was basically rotted. It's leaked for so many years, it's just rotted away, so they had to replace all that wood. Step over here. Interesting, some of the leaks that I didn't anticipate is all these holes in the main roof, and this is basically over the front of the sanctuary. It had been leaking right through the shingles, which didn't look all that bad, but right also they replaced all these boards, and these are scattered all over the building. They had to pull them out.
These photos show what was left of the Yankee gutter area over the back door. So we're looking at old Yankee. So we're looking at old Yankee gutters.
We're looking at what's left of the Yankee gutters. They have leaked for so many years. Yeah. This is what a lot of the wood on our roof looked like. And around the bell tower. Matter of fact, this one around the bell tower would have been part of the beam supporting that, and it was gone. So in essence, there was nothing supporting the roof there, other than the pressure of it all leaning against the bell tower.
Sure.
But the Yankee gutters, if you're looking at the guy, I didn't have any pictures to look before, but they're all tipping, and you can see them on the south side of the building. They're tipping away from the building and pulling down. I said, well, something's wrong. When we tore it out, well, that was wrong. He said, the only thing holding them up there is the tin. You know, all the tan work you see up there it's not wood, it's a tin. And the wood inside was all rotted, so everything was just falling off. That's what's left of what was inside of it.
These slides show damage to the bathtub roof over the lower front doors.
There again, that damage, you know, most people would never see, but it was leaking a lot of it through the old pantry room that the floors collapsed, and then down that drain wasn't really working at all. Some of you may have noticed, I don't know how many times they fixed it, the front of the sanctuary on the left, the stairwell, that ceiling kept collapsing, you know, it was from that drain. And, you know, the last time the guy was here, he says, well, I fixed the drain, but I don't know where the water's coming from. Well, that's where it's coming from.
Why don't you stand by in case we have some,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
we're gonna have some answers about the roof. So Tim has more photos of the repairs and the finished work of the roof. These repairs are what, the repairs that were done are what we determined needed to be done now. Many more areas of the roof need repair, then replacement of the entire roof and gutter system, maybe for another $200,000, plus all of the issues that we showed you before would garner another several $100,000 in bills to fix if we can get contractors to come. Part of our challenge too is our very tall building, and some contractors don't want to work that high. So we have a Q&A about plans going forward, but this particular part was just about the physical building. So this is a good opportunity to ask any questions you have about any of the pictures that you've seen or about this building. So, any questions?
What about the other side of the sanctuary that's out front there by the main road?
Let me walk
The
over so I
main-
can listen better.
The north,
The other side of the sanctuary where it's leaking in.
where it's, where the, no, the, right on the main street,
On the Main Street side, yeah.
yeah, what about that side?
We hope that fixed it for now.
Yes. As far as we know, those leaks should be fixed. It becomes a question, because there are other leaks high up. Remember, when you look up in the sanctuary ceiling, you're not looking at the roof. There's a whole nother area above that. So water can infiltrate in, might run down beams. We tried to trace most of those. But like I said, we found leaks that we didn't even know we had. Until they peeled those shingles off, and obviously it's leaking, the wood is wet, it's rotting. So it hadn't made it down to the sanctuary yet.
We're having a heck of a time keeping water out. Yes, Cal?
How far down are they gonna take that chimney? Just down to the roof and then cap it, or all?
That was, my recommendation is not even down to the roof, down below
Oh,
the
that
damage.
bad spot.
Down below the damage and then cap it. It's not used anymore, hasn't been for years, so.
And Tim, we did get one estimate for that so far, right? One company.
Yeah, we had one company to the tune of like 60,000. I mean, that's a number, I felt it was high, but even if it's half that, $30,000.
We're hoping that the company that comes to see it at the end of this month will have a lower price than that.
Yeah.
Getting people to come is hard. You know this from your houses. Yes, Stephanie.
If we're looking at moving to Zion, why are we doing all these repairs?
Some of them, well, first of all, we don't have a merger agreement with Zion yet. Some of them are so urgent. You saw that piece of wood from Pastor Emily. And in some cases, it's dangerous. And we don't want, it's already going to incur time, materials, effort to fix the damage that's inside the sanctuary that we can see while we're sitting in the pews. We don't want any more.
And keeping in mind, the history on that, every year annually, we have a fire inspection. State in the city of Geneva, they also call it the City of Geneva, Ontario County Aesthetics Code. So, I mean, they'll nitpick you for peeling paint and things like that. And so they wrote us for the sanctuary, the walls going up the stairwell into the back of the sanctuary, and the ceiling tiles and everything that are failing there. They didn't get us for the actual main sanctuary. I don't think the guy saw it. So part of that, I mean, we've got a temporary operating permit right now, assuming we need to fix the rest of those damages. And they do that every year, and they go through, and it's usually we have a exit light out, or little stuff. They're generous with us, but they got us in that. So
I appreciate that explanation.
Yes, Pat?
I gather the
sunken floor had something to do with the weight of all the community lunch program food.
It didn't help, but the underlying problem is the drainage,
Right.
and then they got wet in that crawl space for, gotta been a long time. Those are big oak timbers, they don't rot overnight. All the drainage from the roof tiles, the basement, everything runs through that crawl space towards the city's stormwater, we think. And this big clay tile pipe, so they've all just deteriorated and collapsed. Some of you know Will, guy does a lot of work around here. He actually crawled on his belly up under there, and he said there's no bottom to the pipe. So any rainwater coming in, it's just flooding the basement. That drain, we just fixed the roof. We showed on what we call the bathtub over the lower front doors. That drain is busted in the basement there. I've yet to get, I told Will, we're gonna try just hooking the pipe back up and see if the water goes out. Or is the city drain plugged up? I had a Roto-Rooter guy in here, we had Helco guys come in. They pretty much like, thanks but no thanks. Because we don't know, he said if they get into that drain and find out that's going into a city sewer line, which undoubtedly it probably is, he said then we have to redo everything. He said now you open up a can of worms. And the engineer that looked at the building said the same thing. Well, first of all, we gotta get all these drain lines outside. And then he turns to me and he said, that won't be cheap.
So the engineer, who took many of the pictures you saw, sent us a proposal for a first phase of recommendations that would extend over 10 years. To do the proposal costs $11,000. So he didn't charge us anything, I don't think, for the letter that he sent us, that we're relying on for this. But he has a plan that would take 10 years to make the fixes that he saw, to these pictures that you see.
You know, a lot of it was, I mean, straightforward, simple, you need a new roof. You need to fix the gutters, and by the way, you need to fix that brick wall, because within a years or two, it will fall. You could go out there now, grab a whole part of that wall, and it'll move. I could stick my arm in it where it's pulling away from the building. That's at the.
Literally pull the wall away.
Yeah. So, in that one picture, when you saw, look, it's actually spray foam. We filled that because when one of the repairs they made years ago, they call it parging, they put on the side of the building. Well, that got water behind it, froze, kicked it out. Then more water was just laying in there and pushing more. So, one of the masonry companies that was here said, well, first you gotta get that stuff off. So, just take it off, it's gonna look ugly, but get it off there, let the wall dry out. We did that, and literally tons of bricks fell with it. And we had holes, I came up the next day and we already had birds trying to get in and make a nest. But right behind that white pipe, that's a drain gutter pipe that comes down the building. The wall jumps out maybe 6 to 8 inches, and that's where it's pulling away from the structure.
And you had a question.
Get an estimate on demolishing the whole building? Really? It might be a realistic thing to do?
That we have not done.
Demolition for a building that size would be over $1 million.
Say at least.
Oh, we're over $1 million on what we're talking about.
Right, but I wasn't, you asked me a question, I'm just saying to you that the demolition for that size building, okay, with everything, would be over $1 million. The demolition today is phenomenally high, and your safety precautions when you start talking about doing demolition within the city of Geneva or any place, you have tremendous amounts of air pollution. And when you get into that, you have to use constant spray to keep the building dust down, okay? You're going to have tremendous amount of truck traffic, because it all has to be hauled away to a transfer point and ferry. It's a tremendously expensive. I don't know that you could get it done for $1 million. have heard recently on an area that I would have thought was 10 or 15,000 is 50,000. And that's the cost of what's going on and going up. When you start looking at a 10-year program, the cost of materials right now has nearly doubled in the last few years. When you start talking about going out to a 10-year program, you're talking about, well, probably upwards of, I would say, $1 million. So what do you do for the property? That's something that I don't really know what you do with it, because the other thing is, if you try to sell it, okay, at its current state, you're not gonna get much of anything for it, because they're gonna look at all the deterioration, and they're also gonna look at it for what demolition would be, and you're almost going to get nothing for the building. So I don't know a solution. I don't know a solution to the whole thing, but it's, for me, okay, the memories, okay, weigh in, and at this point, they can't. You know, we raised 2 kids here, you know, intricately involved in the church, but the facility is in such dire shape that I really don't have an opinion of what to do with it.
Other questions about the building, folks? We have a Q&A after this on broader topics, but
Maybe this is, go ahead, Sam.
How long was this building under construction after the damage?
I'm sorry, what about the construction?
How long was this building under
Assuming you could demolish it,
the leaking
I
damage?
could see
after-
repurposing the real estate.
Demolishing
The
is not an
structure.
option.
Hold on,
That
friends,
would be-
hold on, I'm sorry. It's hard for us to hear people behind us. Sam was in the process of asking you a
Oh,
question.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. How long was the building under construction to begin with? Is that your question?
After the damage started,
After the damage started.
how long was the construction started?
How long has the damage been going on?
Decades,
Yeah,
Decades.
decades.
there's been a lot of remedial repairs made over the years. You know, some of them, because of, we knew what the cost would be too big, so we tried something else. Some of it, a lot of the damage, this wall in particular, is caused by the Yankee gutters. You know, we've had over the years, different roofers, people come in and they seal them, they line them, they've done all kinds of things. But I finally said, these guys have to stop, we gotta stop fixing, rip it out, just tear it out and find out what's happening. That's when we found all that rot. So, like I said, the whole rest of the building, that was 30-odd feet, probably north of $8,000 to fix. I haven't even seen the bill yet. Because nobody will bid it. It's just time and materials.
The church was very fortunate in the 70s, 80s, 90s,
Yes.
because we had Van Houten brothers, and they would come in and do a lot of the repair work. And in a sense, it was a makeshift repair, because we knew that the Yankee gutters were poor. And you know, it comes down to the point when you don't have people who are contributing that way,
Pay someone.
it just gets to be really imperatively expensive to do those things. The Yankee gutters should have been probably torn out in the 50s or 60s, and they weren't.
Okay, no.
Well, we can't look back, we've got to look forward.
Yeah, like I said, but
Does Kangaroo have a church affiliation? That's number one. No, number two, okay, say we could, you really got down to the nitty-gritty dollars involved, and it turns out demolishing is the best answer. I could then, I'm not an architect, but for those who have emotional attachments, you could take every single stained glass window out of this building have that be the walls. Have it encased in a solid plexiglass or something. I'm sure it could be done. If we can go to the moon, we could build something.
If we had the money.
Yes, yes, Pat.
Maybe like a huge yurt. Windows all around.
And I'll tell you what, sketch it out for us and I'll bring it to the next meeting.
Yes,
No,
Pat.
but I see we could hang on to what we've got
That's right.
and get rid of what we've got.
And also, if we decide that the repairs are too expensive, I hope we would look into if our two big windows are of more value in someone wanting them, you know, auctioned off or whatever if the building is going to be not used.
Well, that's
The-
all,
the
that's
big
all a big
windows
if. I
may
mean,
be
it could
more
be some
valuable.
developer that comes through and I want this building just like it is and you sell it to them. I mean, because the value really goes down and say, we're gonna sell you the building, but we're taking all the stained glass with us.
But if it's, I mean, there may be a value in selling them if there's no use for the building.
But you also have to keep in mind, yeah, there's a value, and a lot of it's sentimental.
Not in the windows.
If one of those windows is damaged, one pane, not good, our costs are about, I think it was between 5,000 and 7,000 per panel. So 10 to 14,000 per window.
I mean the big ones.
Well, even, yeah, remember, we spent
I know.
70,000 just fixing cracks. I couldn't even imagine what it cost to even try to take them out and move them and not break them.
But I would hope it would be worth investigating.
Well, investigate away. Volunteers
Well,
to investigate. I mean, one idea that's been floated is, we've been told by an assessor that this building is worth $285,000. One idea is to get an international realtor like Sotheby's to put it on the market. Does an Arab sheik want to buy the windows and install them in his, you know, in his palace? Do we, I mean, we would want to, I think, go very far afield to see, because the building has many unique features. I mean, I think before we say, oh, this is awful, we're just gonna demolish this, let's see, I am not imaginative enough to imagine what somebody would do with this.
Right.
There may be another church family in this community or in this area who says, we're gonna block off that whole side of the church, just use this part. I don't know, I can dream, but I lack imagination, but I think, but for us to decide, we give up, we're demolishing the whole thing, or, you know, that would, I don't, we're not.
We're a long way from
That should be the last resort.
There's nothing to be gained from that that I can see.
Yeah.
It would incur a massive expense and leave us with nothing.
I'm just saying, as an option,
Yeah.
if nobody wants the building.
Right?
Well,
No,
and
but-
to your point, Pat, there are a couple of companies that are on my radar, one in Pennsylvania and one up in western New York, so maybe Buffalo, that do that, what you're suggesting. They buy giant stained glass windows from churches that are abandoning their buildings, or they buy other such things that are very, very specific and unique and niche market like that. And then I don't know what they do with them afterwards. Maybe they sell them to new construction projects, maybe they sell them to museums, I don't know. Once they've acquired it, it's theirs to do it. But you're right in thinking that it is at least something worth exploring.
Right. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if someone wants to volunteer to start exploring that, we're all for it.
It's told yes and no.
One other question I have is, and I have no idea, are the grants available for renovation for church facilities.
Yes.
A few years ago, maybe 10 years ago, we did look into some of those, not extensively. First off, you gotta have a grant writer. Anybody wanna write a grant application? Most of them at that time were matching grants. So I think the biggest one I ever heard of, if we put up 10,000, they put up 10,000. Well, that will pay for the Yankee gutters in the back of the building. So then it became okay, we get some grants and we've got $100,000 in grants. Folks, I need $1 million. 900,000 short and counting.
Here's another way to look at it. Since the 60s, hundreds of thousands of dollars have been put into this church building. Kitchen, most recently, in 2013, 2014, we raised $219,000 to fix the stained glass windows and to fix the clock tower. But before that, kitchen, the chapel was made, all kinds of renovations, including trying to shore up the building itself. There is no reason to believe that even if we got grants that fixed everything, the building is old enough, and the way that it is built, that there would continue to be issues that come up continually. It would continue to require more and more money. And Earl, I asked, to what end? There were 35 people in the sanctuary today and 15 online. We would be fixing a building for us in an environment in which people are not coming to church on Sunday to worship. These big barns of churches that line North and South Main Street and Exchange Street, many of them are quite empty because that's not what people are doing anymore. We need to meet people where they are and think about a faith community that we can reach out to and incorporate with us that looks quite different from what we look like today and may want to worship in a different way, and that it doesn't require a big building like this.
I agree.
Yes, Cal?
I think our assignment is to think about decisions this week with the idea of what would God do, or what would Jesus do? Would they prefer we put our worship into temples or people?
Yes, Ann?
How forthcoming would the conference be? I'm thinking of the whole upper floor being used for retired pastors for housing. I'm thinking of this level being social area for them and the community and a sanctuary. I'm thinking of the basement, and I suggested this a long time ago. If we had access from Main Street and had underground parking with all of the concrete and rigid work supporting it, heading downhill. So any water that comes in this building anywhere goes down and out of here. I could honestly see underground parking. If you could get that whole place solid enough so that you could support the upper floors and you would have, my Lord, look at the Twin Tower, well, don't look at
The best example.
Sears building, huge buildings that are supported on something down here.
So this was a conference question, it sounded like, may I jump in?
Yes, though what I want us to get around to is why we're thinking about this in the first place.
Yes, yes. So Ann, to answer your question about could the conference help in any way, because that question ties in with questions about grants and other sorts of questions. Right now, the conference is scaling back their budget in a really big way, in large part because we have, I said last Sunday, 185 churches that are choosing to disaffiliate. Now, we pay our monthly payment to the conference office, and they use that for conference level initiatives. 185 fewer churches are going to be putting into that pot now, plus the 30 some odd that have closed just from shrinkage and that sort of thing. And so the conference is not only scaling back their budget, but specifically scaling back on property. As of the end of December, there will be no district offices at all, anywhere in the conference. All district superintendents will work remotely. All of their assistants will work remotely. And so the conference is actually currently actively, aggressively divesting from buildings. I don't think they would have any interest whatsoever. Yeah.
Let's go back to something that your leadership team has been working on.
Ellen, can I say
Oh,
something?
yeah, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Maybe it's a silly question, but will we still have a bishop?
Yes.
Always.
Okay.
Yes.
Your leadership team. Yeah, oh, I'm terribly sorry. It's been awfully nice to stand here with you. Yeah, I'm temporarily done with you, unless there's more.
Shall we dance and I'll step back, you step out, I'll step up.
Your leadership team has been looking at our shrinking congregation, has been looking at our pledges and donations, and has been thinking about a way to have a ministry that also garners additional income, but that also recruits people to be disciples of Jesus Christ, to introduce people to Jesus who haven't done that. So we have considered, in thinking about what could we do, we thought about housing. We thought about, can there be offices here? Can there be, what can we do? We discerned, we talked when we landed on establishing a Christian daycare center. Two reasons. First of all, there's a dire need for daycare centers in this area, but even more important, it is a way to introduce not only children to Jesus Christ, but also their families. So we would do we would have a process, a way to reach out to families who might be unchurched, who don't know about Jesus, to help them become, you could even think about it as a new church family, a new community in which maybe the parents of these kids aren't coming to church on Sunday, but we are having special programs for them, or we are having ways in which they can be part of our community, and most importantly, become disciples of Jesus Christ. So in thinking about that, we looked at commercial properties in Geneva. We had an expert come and look at this church building, who deemed it unsuitable for a daycare center. And then we visited Zion, and where they already have a Christian preschool that's working well. They're on 6.5 acres of land out there. They have a great playground facility, which is a requirement of a daycare center, and they have a lot of unused space. And they have a sanctuary that's only used twice a month. Somebody could shut that door. Thanks, Pat. And saw an opportunity for us to establish a daycare center at that site, and also have a place that's right-sized for our church family, all on one level, in a facility that's much newer than this one. The oldest part of their building was built in 1975, and the newest part is 1999. So starting out thinking about how can we recruit more people to be disciples of Jesus Christ? How can we have a signature ministry that helps us earn income so we are not so dependent exclusively on pledges and donations? And that is how we got to today, as a really short summary of some very hard work that your leadership team has been doing, especially for the last couple of years. We don't enter into this lightly.
So are we going to have another meeting like this to talk about that?
I have a Q&A about some of these things that I can run through with you right now that might either answer some of your questions, but of course, we're gonna be voting on this ultimately. So
I
you're
know.
going to be not only you're gonna be inundated with information at home, there'll be other meetings. By the time we have a vote about whether to merge and leave this building, hopefully everybody's questions will be answered. They might not like the answers, but hopefully their questions are answered. Yes, Bonnie?
Will we ever be merging with Zion Lutheran?
Yeah, let's run, do you mind if we just run through some Q&As that we have that might answer your questions?
Ellen's got some slides following this one that are questions that have already come to us that we've prepared some answers for. So we can start here and then see if there are still questions remaining after.
Okay, we'll just go through this quickly. Erica, did you have?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if people need to leave, they should feel free to, if they have other things they have to do at this point.
Right, yeah, you are not captives. What are we planning with Zion Lutheran Church? Current funding, mostly pledges and donations at our church, aren't keeping up with the bills of this church, including upkeep for our building. The leadership considered several ideas for an income-producing ministry that would help pay future bills and fulfill a need in the Geneva community. We believe a Christian daycare center will meet both of those needs. What does the daycare center have to do with Zion? We considered several locations for the daycare center, including our current building. The commercial properties we looked at and this existing building aren't suitable for housing a daycare center. We started talking with leaders at Zion Lutheran because they have housed a Christian preschool, Cozy Days, there for decades, and the size of the site on which the church sits and the interior layout of the church building would lend itself to renovation for a daycare center. So we would house the daycare center there. Would the congregation move there too? Yes, the Zion Sanctuary and the meeting spaces are well suited to the current size of our congregation. Plus, since the building was constructed in the 1970s and the addition was put on in 1999, the building is in better shape than our current building and would require less maintenance. With the exception of a small balcony over the sanctuary, the Zion building is all on one floor, which makes it less of a challenge to maintain than 340 Main Street. Where do things currently stand with the discussions with Zion? Both our church leaders have spoken with their higher-ups, and we're drafting a merger agreement that will address the needs of all parties. Lawyers will advise us. There isn't a timeline for when we will come to an agreement. We will worship at Zion on November 12th, which will provide another opportunity to meet their congregation and see the Zion building. If you didn't get there in September, do come on November 12th and worship there. I think you'll like what you see. Who owns the church building? We hold the property in trust for the United Methodist Church and will be able to keep the proceeds from the sale as long as we remain a Methodist community. What is the plan for the building? If we reach an agreement with Zion, our building will be put up for sale as is, pending a vote from church members. What will happen with the tower, with the CBN antennas, the large bell and the carillon? The future owners will decide that. What will happen to the community lunch program? Catholic Charities will make that decision. When and if we move, we may ask them to help pay for utilities, since they will be the only occupant. Clearly, if we move and the building is empty, we're keeping the heat on, we're paying the electric bill, but they would be the only occupant. So we might ask them if they could provide some help toward the cost of utilities, which we've been paying exclusively for Catholic charities. What happens with the Zion folks? We have proposed that they join us as United Methodists and that we give the merged church a new name. That's all not likely to happen quickly, though. Who at the conference level needs to be notified of our leaving the building? The district superintendent, the DS, and the district committee on church location and buildings need to sign off. The district superintendent is well aware of our plans and she is supportive. Someone asked if the green space can have a labeled designated name, such as the Johnson Green Space or Methodist Park. If we sell the building, that property will belong to the new owner. If it remains a green space, perhaps the new owner won't object to having a sign put up. This question was asked earlier. Can we get a grant to completely fix our current building? Even if we have the grant writing expertise to acquire $300,000 to $500,000 to fix it, we need to ask ourselves to what end. Not only has the building required hundreds of thousands of dollars of fixes every decade since the 1960s, there's no reason to think that won't continue to happen. Most important, the building will not meet the needs of our future church community, which likely will look very different than it does today. Will we still use the current simplified structure model for church leadership if we merge with Zion? Yes, we intend to do that. It's been working well for 4 years, and we hope to combine their church leaders and ministry teams with ours. How do we get more questions to leadership as they come up? Please feel free to talk with any of us. Here are the names of your current church leadership team. And in 2024, Deb McLaughlin, Carol Huther, and Irka Elsevier are joining the leadership team. Questions about these Q&As? Yes, Pat?
Cozy Days is there presently.
Yes.
Do we say, sorry, you can't be here any longer? Do we merge with them? Apparently, and I don't know if Cozy Days has helped supplement Zion.
Let's talk about Cozy Days. So Cozy Days is preschool for 3 and 4-year-olds that many of our kids have gone to, a Christian preschool that has, I think it's celebrating its 37th or 38th year in existence, that takes up part of that building. They are a ministry of Zion, and Zion parishioners pay for Cozy Days. Cozy Days does not earn money for Zion.
So what will happen to them?
Hopefully, over time, they will become part of the daycare center. That's all TBD. For a while, they may be left alone to continue in their current format, but as we renovate and make space for a modern daycare center, hopefully we would be able to merge the two and use their classroom space as well. Perhaps even their staff want to become a part of the daycare center staff.
So where would our daycare center be?
If you come to church on the 12th, did you see?
I went through, but that's their Cozy Day center.
Right.
Where would ours be?
There are all kinds of empty and underused rooms in that building that ours would be in. And we'd also use part of their fellowship hall. There are rooms that they have a number of rooms that they have a choir room they're not using. They have another number of rooms that have storage in them that would be, if renovated, be suitable for the daycare center. One of the nice things about the Zion setup is that it's close to exits, which are required, and to get the kids outside. Its whole first floor setup lends itself to being incorporated as a daycare center. That conference room, could be used. We're even thinking, for those of you who've been to Zion, when one walks in, through the vestibule into the sanctuary, there's a secretary's office, there's a pastor's office, that's glassed in. That could be perhaps a reception area, and even one of the rooms for the daycare center. There might be able to be a door there that one enters so that when one goes into the sanctuary, there's a door to your right where the daycare center starts, and you enter the daycare center, and the Cozy Days rooms are included in that too. Pastor Emily says she's happy to have a room that just has a piece of glass in the door so that she can see out. She doesn't require much.
So for a while, Cozy Days would be there, and we would be there with a new daycare?
Ellen, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we don't know yet is the short answer. I can assure you that as the process progresses, I will be having a conversation with their director and with their founder, who are now two different people. I'll be having lunch with them. I'm not interested in being the major conglomeration that goes in and takes over the little mom and pop operation. That's not, you all know me better than that. That's not my spirit, that's not the spirit of your leadership team. We want to take the fabulous work that Cozy Days has historically done for literally my entire lifespan and work with them, not against them, and see what their wishes are for the future of their program and see how that can be in concert with what we're looking to do. They right now use one room full-time and a second room every once in a while. There are, like Ellen was saying, 6 or 8 or 10 other rooms that aren't being used at all. So we can go in and do the sort of ministry that we're looking to do without displacing them. Part of what I need to do is have conversation with them and ask them what they want rather than go in making assumptions one way or another. So this will be done in a very relational, loving, Christ-like sort of manner. This is not a hostile takeover situation.
No, but I think we have to think about these things.
Of course, and
Oh,
we
we
are.
have.
We absolutely are,
Oh,
and
that's why I'm asking the question,
Right.
because answers
Right,
are with you, not with us.
right.
and they're available to anyone who asks, and so I'm glad that you did. Yeah, I'm glad that you did.
Yeah.
We are absolutely planning to have those conversations with the women who run Cozy Days and to bring them into full conversation. I just had a conversation with Pastor Charlie about writing it into the merger agreement that they would be named stakeholders in all of the decision-making moving forward too. We're not, like I said, it's not a hostile takeover situation, no matter what my children might say.
And we've met with them.
Yes,
We've already had meetings with them. We understand their fee structure.
so thank you for naming that. You're absolutely right that that needs to be something that's being addressed, and I'm glad to say that it is.
Through this
Will
whole,
will we ultimately own that building? The Methodist Church, Methodist congregation, own that building?
the merged church
Yes,
will own the building.
Yes.
the merged church will own that building.
So does that mean we can be kicked out if they decide, oops, they don't want to merge after the fact?
Not when we have a signed agreement.
It's gonna be basically 50-50, so no one can kick one out the other way, that's what I understand.
That's not quite how it would work, and there are a number of different ways that this could play out. Part of the denominational stuff that we're working with is they have their rules to follow, we have our rules to follow. We have to figure out a way to make this merger work that is mindful of all of that. To answer the question of could we get kicked out, no, we would be the owners of that building. It would be in our incorporated name and deeded to.
The incorporated name of the merged group.
Yes,
Or-
which would be a single congregation, just like we now are a single
Right,
congregation.
okay.
Pat can tell you, in 1968, 2 congregations merged to form this one, right? When the
Yeah.
EUB
Denominations.
and the Methodist Episcopal Church merged denominationally. That happened on the local level too. This is not the first time this has happened in this church's lifetime, and I can't say this for me, but it's not the first time this has happened in many of y'all's lifetime, right? In 1968, there was a merger that came about to be the church that we know now. And so there's precedent.
This isn't unique in our conference either.
Right.
There are Methodist churches that are merged with other denominations in our conference.
Phelps is one.
Exactly. That's a good example.
Yeah.
Question, a question I had, the financial responsibilities, for modernizing the building to house the Christian school, okay? That would be the merger debt responsibility, in other words, that would all fall into that. We as a congregation currently would not be responsible for any more than the other portion, the other group. Am I correct on that? Because you know that when you start modernizing and getting those rooms ready, there's going to be expenses in there for that construction part. And that's a point that, to me, it would be good at a point to get someone in there with some ideas as to what you're going to do and what the cost is going to be. Because that is gonna be a factor in that facility. The other thing that I have as far as location for that facility, okay, is that in a demographically adaptive area for all the kids to come there?
It's in a childcare desert. I mean, that's what it's called. It's in a childcare desert. Think about also all the action that's going on in the town of Geneva now,
Right.
and how it's booming on that side of town.
Right.
More and more people. We think it's a honey of a location for that.
Okay. That's just a question I have.
I have a question.
Ann had a question first.
No, I have an answer. I'm not going to leave this room without publicly thanking you, your
Yes.
committee. Tim has done a lot, everyone in this room who have worked diligently to bring us to this point. And I also thank you for my lunch. As I did not toil or spin, I brought nothing. And it was
It's all right,
delicious.
Ann, it's all right.
So thank you.
Thank you so much.
I brought it in
Yes,
my
Bob.
stomach.
My question is, if we move out of this church and join Zion or whatever church, what's gonna happen to the benches out there that are in memory of people? Are they gonna be permitted to stay there? Do we have to take them away? What are we gonna do with those?
We don't have a direct answer for that right now, but I am mindful that benches out there have been dedicated in memory of some who are really, really dear to us. We're not approaching that question casually. Some of it would be possibly in agreement with the new owners if a purchase agreement were reached. But I don't have a concrete answer for that question right now, except to assure you that I am mindful of the personal value of the benches that are out there.
Other questions? Yes, Stephanie.
Question and kind of comment. So you said that, if we were to fix this building, we'd be fixing it for us, and that by moving to Zion, we're gonna increase our congregation size? Because Zion currently is giving up their building, to my understanding, because their congregation is so small, that they're not using it full-time. So,
Well, we're not. That would be a lovely, subtext to this, that we increase our membership. The first time I visited Zion last November, there were 20 people in worship. On our combined service in September, there were 12. Remember, they have a sister church in Potter, so on the two Sundays of the month that they're not in Geneva, they can go to Potter, Potter can come to them. They don't have a very big congregation. So that would be a nice byproduct. Our choir is going to sing there on November 12th and have invited people from Zion to join the choir. I understand the minister's wife is interested, for example. But we're not moving out there because we hope to increase our congregation size, because there aren't that many of them. We're moving out there because we hope to establish a signature ministry there to not only reach kids, but their families, and introduce them to Jesus Christ. That is the biggest reason we're moving there.
I have a question.
Yes, Bonnie?
How come you don't invite Zion to come to our church once in a while?
Because we don't, go ahead, you have a good answer. We don't poach.
Yeah, I like to joke and say we're not sheep stealers. So the answer to why we're going there each time is because what we're moving towards, what we're looking towards collectively, them and us, so to speak, is a merger that would happen in that building. So it makes sense for our folks to get used to their building. They're welcome to come worship here at any time. I'm not going to invite them to do so at the expense of showing up at their own church on Sunday mornings unless that were an agreement between their pastor and I, like the November 12th thing is. But the two reasons to worship together at this point are to bring the congregations together, which can happen anywhere, and to familiarize us with the Snell Road building, which can only happen there. Does that make sense?
I mean, I know the church isn't God. Wherever you go, you can worship God. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
God is not a building.
The Wesleys did it in a field. Yes, Pat?
If we decide to do this, because it will be hopefully somewhat of a merger, will we be willing to incorporate some of their ways of doing things? For example, they stand during the gospel. It seems to me that that's an easy one that, we could all adapt to. And there's some other things. Is it going to be kind of a definite merger rather than becoming a Methodist church, in that if they wanted to do that, they could come join us
That's right.
now. But it just seems to me that if it's a merger, we should respect some of their rituals and their ways of doing things.
Absolutely. I would
Sure.
love to serve communion every Sunday like they do.
Yes, absolutely, Deb Generally.
But you know what's funny?
Absolutely.
When we went there in September, they had communion and we stood the whole time for the Great Thanksgiving. And I said to Pastor Charlie, but we're just not used to standing the whole time for the Great Thanksgiving. He said, oh, your Great Thanksgiving is a lot longer than ours. we don't do one that long. Oh, good. That's a plus right there. He says that the two hymnals are virtually the same.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, 75% of each hymnal is written in part by Martin Luther and in part by Charles Wesley, so, yeah.
I'd like to
absolutely.
say something. I didn't realize at first I was talking to the minister's wife that time we were there.
Yeah.
Because he mentioned Debbie, and he was kind of looking at her. I turned around and I said, are you the pastor's wife? And she said yes. And she was telling me how their hymnals are kind of old. I said, that's all right, we have some that are old too. And I said, do you bless yourself?
Yeah.
When you pray? She said, we don't, but some of them still do.
Yeah, I am very open to incorporating Christian traditions from their routines and Christian traditions from ours. Yep.
And let's make sure that we take the pew cushions from here over there. They don't
I
have to
heard
go.
someone else say that.
That's important to me, that we have pew
Choir's
cushions.
taking our chairs.
Yes.
We're not gonna,
First, before you put the
we're not
building up.
gonna, we're gonna try real hard not to take a whole bunch of stuff from here over there. That kind of defeats the purpose. But that's, joking aside, I already said to Norma, that's something that would be a priority. Yes, Tim.
Two questions. Backing up, when we talked about the daycare or the daycare center, they have a preschool. What's their enrollment there anymore? Since New York State has put preschool in all public schools with busing now.
They are not under the jurisdiction of New York State.
Yeah, well, I
because they
realize
are
that.
not there enough hours of the day. They get nervous if their enrollment drops below 12. It usually is no more than 20. So every summer, they hope and pray that they are going to get somewhere in, 15, 16, 17, 18 kids. That's what they can handle in their current space with their current staff.
As I said, because the way this, I don't know when Geneva started, they may have started the year before. Waterloo waited till the year they had to last year. Until we could bus them, they couldn't get enough kids to fill those, even the preschool classrooms. Until we made a combination to bus them, well then fine, then they go, because.
Interesting, not to get off on a big tangent, but because there's universal pre-K now,
Yes.
the fact that they have 4-year-olds, they are 3-year-old and 4-year-olds, there are 4-year-olds enrolled there means that parents are paying tuition for their 4-year-olds to go there when their kids could be going for free.
Yeah, that's, I was just curious if it's dropping off significantly
Yeah,
in the last couple.
I think it has. I mean, I think they feel the competition.
Sure. Second question, do we have any sense of what their expenses are to operate that building compared to what it costs us here?
We have their budget. Yeah, we have their budget. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but we,
So, I mean, and this was even years ago when I was at, it was something like $30,000 to heat this building.
Still is.
Yeah, and it's just, we're not here for an hour Sunday, but you're spending that kind of money, just.
call it. Yes, sir.
Question I have, and I know I've been associated with this church for a number of years, but what we used to say the memorial fund or the trust fund or whatever it was, that is, at one point I understood to be about $1 million. And how does that whole process, where does that work out in the end? Does the congregation take that money still and use it? Or what happens to that money?
The Living Memorial Fund, which is hanging around about $1 million.
Right?
We've been using it, as I think most of you know, been using it to try to not touch the principal and using the interest, which is about $6,400, $6,500 a month between that and the parsonage fund, to supplement our pledges and donations. So we try not to touch that. Most of it that we know of, and Gary Schultz is better about this than I am, is undesignated. $600,000, $800,000 of it was left to the church and we put it in the Living Memorial Fund to garner that interest. So that is our money to use. We would use it cautiously because we've needed the interest that it makes to supplement our pledges and donations. We have, we sold the parsonage last year. Last
2
year.
years ago.
2 years
Yeah,
ago.
2 Februarys ago. And now that's making income. Good news is that we can use the funds that earns. We can take that money and put it toward capital repairs. So we could use that money to start doing some renovations at Zion. Though, because that's earning some interest too, we would not then have that interest income. So we need to shepherd these funds carefully.
Does that money, if we do a merger, does that money become automatically part of that merger?
Yes, along with anything they have.
Okay. So we don't, as a congregation, we do not hold that as an entity unto ourselves. It
Just-
goes into the merger completely.
It might be because the merger might take place over time. It might, over 5 years, finally be all one entity, Earl. I mean, right now we're talking about money with them, following a discussion that Pastor Charlie had with his bishop. TBD. But yeah, that's our money. We don't have to give that money to the conference. But we have to be, in order to
move out of this building, sell this building, move there, we have to remain a Methodist church community. Okay. Even if we have a different name.
Oh, okay. Is that complicated?
Yes.
Sure. Lawyers are about to be involved. But, you know,
Yes.
we're talking and talking and meeting, and, yeah. So, this is why do we have a fantasy timeline? Yes, we do. We're not gonna share it with you, because every time we think we're about to take another giant step forward, we have to take a half step back as we're learning new things, but. Anything else, folks? Yes, Stephanie?
So, from the sounds of this, and I know this is unpopular opinion here, I'm sure of it, sounds like this deal is already done, we're just saying forget this building entirely.
We who?
It's just,
We the leadership team?
yes,
or-
that's
The
just
leadership
really how, you know,
team-
this is.
The leadership team doesn't have that authority.
Right, but y'all are already taking steps forward with lawyers and making deals, and, you know, the rest of the congregation hasn't even voted that, yes, let's do this.
There's nothing concrete to vote on yet because the terms of agreement have not been decided upon. We want to make sure that when we do get to the point of vote, you all can be very clear about what it is you're voting on. And right now, we don't fully know that yet. And so we're doing our due diligence before we get to the point of vote, so that we can make sure that when we ask the congregation to vote, you all are equipped with as much information as you possibly can before you cast your vote. We also recognize that in doing all of this, could get voted down. That's the reality of the process, but it's like if I'm gonna sign a contract, I'm not gonna sign one until all of the i's are dotted and t's are crossed and I know all of the details of what I'm signing on to. And so what we're doing now as a leadership team is gathering all of those details, dotting all of those i's, crossing all of those t's, so that when we ask the congregation to vote on it, that it's clear to all parties involved what's being voted on.
I appreciate your answer, but again, we're making offers to Zion. You know, as you said, we may vote down, and yet we've already made the offers.
Stephanie, when I was asked in March to consider becoming part of the leadership team, I was like, ooh, can I really do this? And I was thinking, well, I know what's happening, but I went back and I read all those leadership updates that have come in the bulletins every month. And when I really looked at that, because of course I was doing everything remotely because of pandemic, I knew there was a lot that was happening as far as input. But when I read them all, I was so reassured how much input was being given to every small detail leading up to this point. Because, you know, it's a big thing to decide to be part of a leadership team. So, you know, I wanted to be absolutely sure. So I think that was one of the things that I'm thinking about doing, is like making copies of every one of those so that they're out in the lobby and we can all look at them and sort of get reassured about what all the steps have been to get to this. So it has been with tons of input.
We have to paint a picture for you of what this would look like, so that you have enough information to make a decision. We're just trying to get as many answers ahead of time, so that if the merger takes place, if the merger takes place, you know what you're voting on and what it will look like.
Speaking to Stephanie too about getting lawyers involved, it makes it seem like we're already way down the road. You get these people involved because we don't know the answers, the legal answers and ramifications to each step. And therefore, we want as much information as possible as to if these things happened, how they would have to happen so that we may remain in good stead with our Methodist denomination, so that Zion remains in good stead with their denomination. And why? Because if we misstep and we don't do things in a certain order, they can take our property, they can take our money, they can do all of these things that many of you are concerned about. But if it's done in a logical manner, if we do it in a legal manner, if each side does it in a way that constitutes what their bishop is telling them, our bishop is telling us, then it is something that can take place and it would be to the benefit of everyone concerned. So that's why we're gathering all this information. We're not running down the road on you. What we're doing is putting all this in a suitcase so we can open it up in front of you and be able to answer your questions.
Thank you, Tricia. Yes, Nancy?
What is the percentage when we take the vote? Is it majority? Is it 75%? Was it like it was the last time we took a vote?
I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, would you scrap the proposal for one vote?
Discipline just
10 votes?
simple majority, but we can choose amongst ourselves anything beyond that.
Pastor Emily's saying the discipline just requires a simple majority, but we can decide among ourselves. Yes, Caitlin?
What's a simple majority then?
51%.
So if you have 100 people in the room and 51 people say yes, then it's yes.
That's the minimum requirement that the Book of Discipline has. Beyond that, we amongst ourselves can decide whether we're comfortable with that and whether we are going to require of ourselves a stronger majority than that. That's just the bottom line that we could get away with. And remember too, and Ellen mentioned this in her slides, that there are actually 4 levels of approval required for a sale of a building, and the same 4 levels of approval required for the purchase of the building. And actually, none of them are the leadership team. Let me say that again, none of that, this is not a thing that the leadership team has the power to do on its own. The district superintendent has to sign off. The district committee on church location and buildings has to sign off. The pastor has to sign off, and the whole congregation has to have opportunity to vote on it, has to vote to approve it. So without a district committee, a district superintendent, a pastor, and a whole congregation majority vote, it doesn't happen. So yeah, that's what the Book of Discipline requires.
I think that the way the last vote was handled had a phenomenal amount of integrity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Caitlin's hand was up.
Phenomenal integrity, because it gave everybody an opportunity. That's it. And, you know, whatever the congregation decides on as far as a percentage, I don't, you know, personally, I don't care if it's 1 or if it's 10 or if it's, you know, whatever, if you, in a positive direction that way. Because there's always gonna be people who disagree
Sure.
with some portion of it, okay? That's the way it is, you know?
Caitlin, you have a
This
question?
has nothing to do with really the building, it's just kind of an overall question I just thought of. So there is in the research I've done, there is a difference between how the Lutherans worship and how Methodists worship. How are we gonna do that? Because if we're merging and we're just putting each worship together, because there's a big difference in what they believe and what we believe.
Yeah, so we're combining elements of their worship service and our worship service. A lot of the fundamental theological differences, they understand that they're getting a United Methodist pastor who has United Methodist theology and will teach United Methodist understandings of things. They understand that, they're clear about that. And in fact, that's the way that they have said that they prefer it. Now, there's no way to say this without sounding like I'm tooting my own horn, but one of the questions they brought up to their pastor was, well, what if Pastor Emily moves and then we get some other pastor, we want her? So the understanding is that I come with you all and that I do the teaching and the preaching and that sort of thing. And so we will absolutely be respectful of their traditions. Things like the language around communion might be a little bit different, but our basic understandings are similar enough to make it work.
Well,
Yeah.
within that decision, within this process, if the merger occurs, then will it be automatically a Methodist pastor coming in? Or will it be like the Phelps Church, which was Presbyterian one time, Methodist the next?
TBD, but probably only Methodist. The details of the merger in terms of denominational affiliations are still a bit fuzzy right now. Ellen, or maybe it was Tricia, was right in mentioning that in order for us to keep our property, we have to keep our denominational affiliation. The same is true in Lutheran world. So for a while, until there's been a legal transfer of assets, the two congregations will be fully merged as one federated congregation, but we'll still have to keep separate denominational affiliations, which is clear as mud, I know. I'm still wrapping my head around it. But the eventual hope would be to over time meld it all into a united Methodist congregation. Have I answered your question? Have I made it worse? More complicated?
Anything else, folks? Yes, Pat?
There's dessert.
Yes, do not leave this room without taking one with you.
I have
Yes,
a
Bonnie.
question. If we merge with Zion, will there still be an annual conference for us Methodists?
Yes. Yes.
And will the annual conference still have the ability or the decision to say what minister moves where every year?
Yes.
But you're not planning to be alone, right?
I'm not allowed to retire until I'm 72. I'm 37.
Don't you leave us.
No, I'm actually, with all due respect to the itinerant system and with saying that in all fairness, I am itinerant and that's part of the agreement of being a United Methodist pastor. I have also had some very frank conversations with my higher-ups about the unique needs of my children and the ways in which the school district is meeting those needs. They know that it would be, even if just from that perspective, it would be devastating to move the Hubie family, and so they're not gonna. I have it on good authority that I'm here for a bit. And they know too that the relationship we have is a good and healthy and fruitful one. That a pastor can be a terrible pastor but a good fit for a certain congregation. A pastor can be a phenomenal pastor and a bad fit for a certain congregation. We pair well together, and the powers that be know that. Nobody gains anything by disrupting that. So with all due deference to the reality that I am itinerant, the bishop does hold the authority to call me at any time. It's not
Of course, I
likely.
hear you have good connection with Washington D.C. up there, somebody. You know that person, don't you?
Folks, thank you, first of all, a major shout out to Jeff Kidd, who's got this all set up, and hopefully you've appreciated our new projector, our new screen, and Jeff, also thank you so much for being able to help the folks at home see this.
Where is
Hey,
he?
Jeff.
There he is.
Happy to help. He's ready.
For all of you who made the beautiful decorations, who
Yeah,
brought
yeah.
food, and for all of you especially who hung in there, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ellen.
Oh, you're welcome.
And
Great.
leadership
And
team.
thank you, Tim.
Great,
All
well,
right, Jen.
kudos to the whole leadership team. This has been it's a marathon, not a sprint, right, as they say. So, thanks so much. You know who we are, you know where to find us. Great questions.
This has been even more productive than I hoped it
What's
would
your
be.
address, Ellen, what's your address?
You know where to find me, you know where to find me. Thanks so much.
What's your telephone number?
Everybody have it, you know that too. Everybody have a good week, and as Pat said, cheers dessert.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Jen.
Yes, absolutely.